back to the channel, guys. Today we're just going to take a little quick look at the few cool things I was able to snag at the gun show this past weekend. The first item I was able to snag for a stupid fucking deal is this 1918 Mark 1 trench knife that was French made by the company Au Lion, which is AU Lion. I'm not going to go into full detail about the knife and the history because I've already done that with this LF&C one that I already owned. I did a full video on that, so go back and look through that if you want to know a little bit more of the history and information on how the knife came about. But just kind of quickly, the reason that there are French-made ones is because we knew that we wouldn't be able to get them to the front lines fast enough, so we contracted out a bunch to the French, the Au Lion company, and I believe they produced about 119,000 before the war ended. So if you're looking at the trench knives, just a little bit of heads up. Basically, none of the American-made ones. It is super, super unlikely. I won't say impossible, but I think it would be super unlikely to have any of the American-made ones actually have seen any combat overseas. The French ones, on the other hand, were actually shipped to the troops in time and have potentially seen combat. Now, with that out of the way, I'm just going to compare and contrast the two. The one big difference is the French ones are a little bit cruder. Just the handles aren't quite as nice. They look a little bit crappier. And as far as I know, the French-made ones, they are actually a brass handle, as opposed to the American-made ones are a bronze handle. Difference number two, being the skull crusher pommel is a little bit more rounded, and it's only four-sided. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 sides on the French version, as opposed to the American version is actually 6-sided. So you got 3 and 3. The other big difference is the American-made ones, the spikes are much more pronounced. And that's essentially, A, for doing way more damage when you're punching, but also if someone tries to grab it from you, that doesn't feel good. So you got those are pretty nice and pronounced on the American version, to where on the French version, they're not quite as spiky. They're a little more domed as opposed to the spikes. Another difference here, you can see there's the shape of the knuckle itself, especially that rear one. That's a little bit more straight, as where that one, the LF&C, is a little bit more rounded. So that's another big difference there. And then as you see, the top of this handle, you can see the difference of that compared to this particular Au Lion one has these big grooves kind of carved into the handle, or cast into the handle, I should say. Not all of the Au Lion ones did that, but there are a good amount that did. The other thing is the American ones were blackened, handle and blade. You can see there's still a lot of that blackening on that blade of the current LF&C one I have, as opposed to where the French blades were left just regular. They're just kind of brighter. You can kind of see the logo there. It is a resting lion. And under that, you can see the AU stamp there. It would say Au Lion under it. So this one you can see it's a little bit worse for the wear. You got a little rust and pitting here on the blade, and you can just see the quality difference in the handle itself. It's just not as nice looking. Definitely some good wear on it from potential combat use. You never know. As I say with all of these things, it's fun to think about the potential of this being used as some sort of AO weapon, or, you know, getting something to work or hammering something or whatnot. But just basically what I'm saying is you can see the difference in the quality. This handle is definitely a little rougher than this guy here. This guy is definitely a nicer, just better made. It's better made, plain and simple. Now in my personal two examples, this blade is nice and tight with that skull crusher pommel, and this guy is a little loose. You can kind of hear that. I don't know why exactly. Well, actually I do. This comes off relatively easy. The blade comes out, and that's what it looks like under, which is kind of crazy. Honestly, I would think that you would have some issues because this gets so thin, and I would think that would probably have snapped at some point, but I don't know if you'll be able to see it. But there's definitely some cross threading on here, right in there at the top, which is the reason this, sorry, my cat is jumping around in my closet and making a bunch of noise. But yeah, that's cross-threaded, so it won't allow it to tighten as much as I would like it to, so it's a little bit loose compared to the LF&C one. It's actually really hard doing shit when you're looking through a camera. I don't know if you guys have tried that. There we go. So you can hand tighten it, but if you tighten any more, it kind of skips that thread and gets loose again. So, unfortunately, that's as good as that gets. But again, I got this thing for so goddamn cheap, I don't really care. It's just a good example of an Au Lion French-made 1918 Mark I trench knife. Unfortunately, neither of these have original sheaths. This one didn't have a sheath at all, and the LF&C came with a really shitty reproduction sheath. Man, I tell you, I think the sheaths are more rare and more expensive than the knives themselves these days. A lot of the LF&C ones just had two little metal posts that went in between the holes in the pistol belt, and a lot of those got broken off. So I have to assume that people probably just threw them away. And by the time a lot of the American-made LF&Cs and from the other companies made their way into World War II via paratroopers or Rangers, and people either took the M8 sheaths for the M3 trench knife and put them in those, or did like theater-made leather sheets or kind of shit like that. So yeah, the sheaths, unfortunately, if you find an original, they're insanely expensive. There's some good reproductions, especially for the LF&C ones, that I'll probably just grab because they're relatively inexpensive and they do look good. Like I said, the one I have looks awful, but it is what it is. So yeah, that's just a little quick breakdown of the differences between the French-made Au Lion 1918 Mark I trench knife and this American-made LF&C 1918 Mark I trench knife. Like I said, if you want a little bit more of how the knife came about and development and whatnot and production numbers, I did a full video on this guy a while back, so I'll link it in the end of this video if you're interested to give it a watch. It's definitely a really badass design. Not as good as a utility knife, but I mean, just for trench warfare, man, you got the knuckles, you got the spikes, you got the skull crusher, you got a great stabbing point on there. Just one of my favorite looking knives ever. I've always loved these knives, and honestly, I never thought I would even own one of them. They were always like a bucket list military item, and I never thought I'd own one, let alone being lucky enough to have two examples. So I really just lucked out at the gun show with this guy, and very stoked to have it. So, all right, and then the next thing I grabbed was a 30-round Thompson magazine from World War II. So here you can see the maker stamp SWCO, which is for the Sparks Withington Company. Now, the Sparks Withington Company only did one contract from the government for these Thompson magazines, and they were awarded the contract in June 2nd, 1942, and they finished production in, I would say, mid-1943. So they just did one run. You can see this has got some pitting here in the metal, but still in good, springy working condition, in good shape. Probably never used. It was probably just stored poorly. You don't see too many. You see a little bit of wear right there, so it's probably, tested a couple times, but it just doesn't look like it was heavily used or anything like that. The coloring's predominantly still there. You've got, like I said, a little wear right there and like up at the top, but nothing too crazy. Like I said, it's nothing too special, but it's definitely a cool little piece to add to my World War II collection. I love Thompsons. They're one of the most badass machine guns ever. So I definitely just wanted to add one of those to the collection. I'll probably get like a 20 round or another 30 round at some point, but man, for the price, I could not complain one bit. So that's it for those two. I did get one more cool piece from the gun show. I'll probably do it in a separate video and dedicate a little bit more time to that. So I'll probably do a part two at some point here. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you like what you're seeing, let me know what you think in the comments. If I got anything wrong, give me a heads up. Don't be a dick about it. But like I've said a few times, I'm a novice. I'm no expert. I just something I'm passionate about, and I'm learning as I go along. So if you disagree with something or whatnot, just give me a shout, or feel free to comment on anything you'd like anyway. So yeah, I appreciate you guys, and until next time, be good.